Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Summer Ottershot. On Inside the Newsroom, we bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we bring in our newsroom staff members to talk about these stories so that you can get a unique perspective to the stories that you see every day on KELOLAND News and on KELOLAND.com. Now, I cannot believe that it is already Wednesday. Obviously, I'm filling in for Maddie Paul this week, and time just flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? So yeah, I can't believe that we are halfway through the week, but I'm sure that there are some people in Sturgis who are probably taking a little extra long weekend after Sturgis wrapped up a few days ago. Speaking of Sturgis, those final results are in for the 85th annual Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. The total vehicle count hit 537,000 this year, which is the highest since 2014. That is a lot of people. I can't imagine all those people being in my town. City officials say that the count is a reliable indicator of attendance, even though some of the vehicles will come into the city with multiple people. Now, the city also tracks cell phone data throughout the rally, counting over 576,000 visits to Sturgis. So many people. You can learn more about these numbers in a story by digital reporter Ray Yost on our website right now. I cannot imagine going to Sturgis. Look at all of those people. I've been to Sturgis around rally time, never through rally time, and I had to drive my dad's really big truck through that. And I see why people drive motorcycles if they're out at the rally, because trust me, you do not want to be driving a car through there. It is congested, but I hope everybody had a great time if they were able to go out there. Well, Sturgis is over, but we got a packed show ahead. Dan Santellis tells us all about the Indian Council General and why he's in Sioux Falls. And Jordan DeSmit breaks down everything he saw and heard in the courtroom for the triple homicide trial. But first, Carly Phillips tells us what we need to know after 20 reports of an EBT scam in Sioux Falls. That's ahead on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. The Sioux Falls Police Department is investigating multiple reports of a scam that involves stolen EBT card information. Carly Phillips has the details.
Sioux Falls police say they've already received in excess of 20 fraud reports, each pertaining to EBT cards, and more were coming in this morning.
The circumstances in these cases all appear to be very similar, in which people went to go use their EBT cards and found out that there was no balance on the card or there was an insufficient amount of funds for a transaction to take place.
EBT cards function like a prepaid debit card. They can be used to purchase eligible food items. Police are still trying to figure out how card information was compromised.
Hopefully we'll have some updates on that here in the near future.
According to the Better Business Bureau, those stolen funds can be hard to track down.
There's not really funds available to immediately reimburse these stolen SNAP benefits.
But there are a few things you can do to protect your card's information.
Update their passwords just as they do on everything else, whether that's your debit card, whether that's your EBT card or your SNAP card.
You should also watch out for phishing calls and emails and report any fraudulent activities to law enforcement.
And now Carly Phillips joins us. Carly, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I cannot imagine going to swiping my card to buy food for me or for my family and having no balance. That just sounds gut-wrenching. Tell me a little bit about what you know about this scam and what exactly happened.
Absolutely, yeah. So when obviously police said that they received an excess of 20 fraud reports relating to those EBT scams yesterday morning, and they were getting more reports coming in as of yesterday as well. But basically, when these people went to purchase food, like you said, for their families, for themselves, they had no balance on there. And so police are still trying to figure out kind of how that card information got compromised and maybe, how to help those people as well.
Yeah. Because you talked with the Better Business Bureau about this, what did they have to say about this scam? Is it a common scam? Is it something they've seen before? Or just what was their take on it?
Yeah, well, I talked with Jessie Schmidt, and she was kind of, when I called her about it and asked if, she could talk about this, she was kind of like, she hasn't really heard about it that much. And so, she mentioned, obviously that's why, checking your balance often is so important, and it's something that you hear all the time, but I would say even myself, I could be better at checking, my card's balances, but that's why it's so important to be, changing your passwords, not sharing your information with anyone, and just, being on the lookout for anything that looks suspicious to you.
Yeah, and that was sort of my next question is what tips did they give you as far as, helping you hopefully avoid this situation for yourself and for your family and your friends?
Yeah, another thing that she mentioned was if you were the victim in this case of one of those EBT scams, obviously get that password changed, get that information reported to law enforcement, but then also check your other account information as well, because you never know, they might have been able to get some of that other information from some of your other accounts.
Scary thought. Yeah. I know sometimes I avoid checking the balance because sometimes I'll go on spending sprees, but yeah, especially if you were one of the victims, even if you're not, you're going to want to check that to make sure that you are in the clear. Is there anything else that you would like to add about this story, Carly, or any other advice?
Yeah, I would just say, obviously, if you know of any information, report it to either the Sioux Falls Police, the Better Business Bureau, because obviously tips and everything like that can make a big difference.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Carly. Well, coming up, we hear about why the Indian Consul General is in Sioux Falls. That's ahead on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. A high-level representative of the country of India is in the upper Midwest this week for a summit on international relations. Ahead of that, Dan Santella sat down with him to learn about how South Dakota might benefit from these international links.
Geographically, India and South Dakota have some distance between them, but international business can make partners of communities on opposite sides of the globe.
We know of certain technologies which India can bring to the region, particularly in agtech. We are also a very large farmer-driven country. So I think agtech is one area where we can contribute to South Dakota.
Prakash Gupta is General Consul of the Consulate General of India in Seattle, which serves several states, including Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. This week, he is in Sioux Falls participating as a panelist at tomorrow's Midwest Agricultural Export Summit.
Showcasing the opportunities that India offers to South Dakota, hoping that as soon as possible we can get a trade mission from South Dakota to visit India.
And today, ahead of that summit, he brings up popular goods for which South Dakotans have to look beyond their state's borders.
In the ag space itself, we would like to bring in some nice Indian coffee to South Dakota. We would like to bring in some Indian mangoes.
U.S. President Donald Trump put an extra 25% tariff on India last week, which makes for combined tariffs of 50%. But for his part, Gupta is not sharing any frustration or alarm.
I'm very confident that the negotiators of the two sides who are leading the trade talks would do both their countries the desired outcomes that are needed in terms of meeting a minimum common ground.
And now Dan Santella joins us. Dan, thanks for being with us today.
Of course.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about why the Indian Consul General and his full title, but why is he here this week?
So we have this Ag Summit happening in Sioux Falls today, and he's going to be a panelist on that. So that's what brought him to town. He is then the Consul General of the Indian Consulate in Seattle, which sounds like a ways from South Dakota, but among the states it serves is Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So he has a direct link to South Dakota in that way. And as a diplomat, he serves all those states for representing India's interests, working with the United States. And given that tie, he was here.
Super cool. And you're like, oh, Seattle sounds far away, but it sounds a little closer than India. So.
It does, yeah. But I mean, not that far when you think of international trade and the relevance that South Dakota's markets and South Dakota's products have, well beyond our borders. It's all relevant. And I think I mentioned in the story yesterday that, a gargantuan population on the other side of the planet can have these strong links to South Dakota because what we produce here and then what we might want to import here as well.
Yeah. And I never really even thought about it even before, just right now, just how far South Dakota's reach has. Because, we always hear about, support your local businesses. And obviously we do that, in my opinion, really well in South Dakota. But those businesses also expand to not only the nation, but the entire globe. So,
and internationally, our farmers and producers, they want their soybeans and their corn to go far. And that helps infuse and that, of course, benefits South Dakota. And so this is all part of that, conversation too. As you just heard from Mr. Gupta talking about Indian ag technology potentially benefiting South Dakota. possibility of mangoes and coffee from India here.
I could go for mangoes and coffee.
Yeah, I know those.
Yep.
So don't always think about coffee with India, but I'm sure they make a good cup.
I didn't either. We were talking on the morning show this morning about, I've personally had Vietnamese coffee, I've had Kona coffee. I haven't had Indian coffee, but
I don't know if I have either.
I'll brew up a cup right now if they got it. So.
Right.
He was also talking about how he wants to incorporate, with the universities, sort of introducing them to a little bit of that Indian culture in some different ways. What exactly did he have to say along those lines?
I think he was talking about a film festival, because that had been done with Montana, about Indian films, and he was thinking about the possibility of incorporating such a film festival in Vermilion and or Brookings with USD or SDSU about Indian films, and talking about the possibility of that, so people can learn about India through some of its culture and art and its output in that way. So he was looking at what had happened in Montana and thinking maybe it could happen in South Dakota.
Hey, I think that'd be a super cool thing to bring to South Dakota, because just learning more about that culture, and that's really. And you sort of mentioned it, how not only is this something to benefit India, but also to benefit South Dakota.
Yeah, it's a two-way bilateral street.
Yeah. So amazing. Well, Dan, is there anything else from your story yesterday that you think viewers should know about?
I think it came across visually too. He was just a pleasant guy to talk to. He was very affable and enthusiastic about India and telling people about India, which was really cool. I'd never been there, and I told him that, and he's like, "Oh, you got to visit." I'm like, "I know." So maybe someday.
hey, get your passport ready.
Come to say, actually, I think I need to renew that by the end of next year.
I think I do
about
too.
That for a while.
Well, this is your, if you want to go to India, you got to go get that done, Dan. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan.
You bet.
Well, ahead we talk with Jordan DeSmit after he spent the last week covering the triple homicide trial in Lincoln County. That's coming up on Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Last summer, it took Justin Rackley less than 15 seconds to end 3 lives. It took jurors just an hour and a half to convict him on every count. Jordan DeSmit has been covering the triple murder trial since it began.
Before closing arguments began, the judge spoke directly to Justin Rackley. She told him he had the right to testify, and if he chose not to, the jury wouldn't hold it against him. Rackley declined to take the stand. During closing arguments, Lincoln County State's Attorney Tom Woolman summarized the evidence and explained how it proved Rackley was guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt, of first-degree murder.
When you look at the intent that he had of arming himself and bringing that handgun into that party, and then drawing that handgun in the fashion that he did and shooting it in the fashion that he did, clearly showed what his intent was.
However, Rackley's defense attorney Matt Theophilus argued the crime was not premeditated. He claims no evidence pointed to a motive, so he says there was no reason for Rackley to kill Michael Thompson, Kelly Reeves, and Daniel Chemnitz. Theophilus asked the jury to consider whether alcohol affected Rackley's ability to form specific intent, but Woolman explained the state was not required to prove motive.
It's just one of those random acts of violence that we'll probably never know why he did what he did. But beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury has told us he did it.
After the guilty verdict, the judge ruled that Rackley would remain in jail until his sentencing. As he was handcuffed and escorted out of the courtroom, family and friends of the victims clapped.
And now Jordan DeSmit joins us. Jordan, thank you so much for being here with us today after almost a full week of covering this trial.
Yeah, it was a lot. A lot of long days.
Yeah, and it was your first extensive courtroom experience like this. I haven't even covered anything to this extent. Tell me just a little bit, because, the start of the week versus the end of the week, you could tell you got a little bit more comfortable with this reporting. But what did you learn just on the news side of things this week?
A big thing is I learned how a trial works, right? Obviously you see the true crime documentaries and you see all that stuff, but you really don't 100% know how the proceedings go and how they work. I learned a lot about that. But I would say my biggest struggle throughout the week is obviously you cannot have a camera in the courtroom, and very rarely can you have a camera in there. And so I'm a double checker. So I prefer to have a video to double check and everything, but I had to just sit and furiously take notes and just trust that my notes were accurate, and I believe they were. And it was a challenge, but I got better at it as the week went along.
Yeah, because especially in the news, people are looking to you to tell them exactly what's happening. So you don't want to get any of those notes wrong. And obviously, I feel like somebody would have told you if you got something wrong. So yeah, you should be good on that part. Tell me a little bit about what was the atmosphere inside of the courtroom. What did you hear? What did you see while you were reporting?
I mean, I would say depending on what witness was testifying, but it was pretty emotional, right? I think the courtroom was packed the whole week with family and with friends, and especially when 2 witnesses testified that survived the shooting, that was probably the most emotional the courtroom got. There were tears, and just what they talked about, how this shooting impacted them. It was truly emotional and heartbreaking to hear. And I would say right before they said the verdict, you could cut that tension in the courtroom with a knife. Yeah. It was quiet, it was still, and people were just on the edge of their seat. Even my hands were like starting to sweat a little bit. I was nervous. I mean, it was an interesting day and an interesting week.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like in that courtroom. I've been very invested in this case since the beginning because I was the first person at Kello to report on it. I was there at 3 something a.m. when Perry Groten called me and he was like, "Hey, Summer, I think a triple homicide just happened." So I was right there with I shot all that footage. I was there the day after. I talked to neighbors. I talked to people who did the vigil, and I've been waiting for over a year to hear exactly what happened here. So just tell me a little bit of what they say, the breakdown of that night, that they all can agree on, and tell us then also, where things maybe got a little muddied from one side to the other side.
And I would say, I think you can start back earlier in the night. So a female witness testified who survived the shooting. She met Justin Rackley at a bar, Woody's Bar, and Rackley had bought her a shot, and that's how those 2 had met. And they had gone to 2 more bars after that. And after the third bar, there was someone who was at that party, invited to that party, that struck up a conversation with this female victim that survived, and she invited them to this get-together where the shooting happened. And so you see Justin Rackley, you see this female victim arrive kind of in the early morning hours, and Rackley and this female victim really did not know the people at the get-together well. This was the first time that they had met each other. The other people at the get-together knew each other, kind of had been hanging out really the whole night. And so really in trial, they said that the mood when Rackley got there, it was fun. It was a good experience, a good friendly environment, which was interesting, right? That's not something you really expect to hear. Even Rackley had gone to get some firewood with some of the other guys at one point. They had given Rackley the nickname Texas because that's where he's from. And then all of a sudden, I mean, both witnesses, a male and female witness who survived the shooting, they said there's really no confrontation. All of a sudden, shots rang out. And Tom Woolman, the state attorney, he started his opening statements with, in 5 seconds, there were 12 shots.
Wow.
9 seconds later, a 13th shot. So that's where we got the line of, in less than 15 seconds, 3 lives were gone. Yeah. And they played that ring video in court where you hear all 13 gunshots. And I'll never forget the first time they played that, I was sitting next to a family member and she jumped at the first gunshot. And it was hard to watch that ring video. And so you hear the gunshots and then you see the 2 victims that survived run into the house. And then a second ring video, you see the male victim walk out because he said in court that he witnessed his best friend, Daniel Chemnitz, get shot. And a direct quote that I pulled from it was, "That sight will never go away, and that will forever be burned in my mind." And so you see him walk back out. He's on the phone with 911. And then I believe what he testified was he saw Rackley standing there. He dropped his phone. Then Rackley chases him back in the house. You see that on the ring video. And probably the most heartbreaking part of that ring video is you can hear this male victim pleading for his life. And yeah, it was tough. And then, Rackley and this male victim kind of get into a fight. The female victim's hiding in a closet at this point, and that's kind of when police come up on them. And thankfully, this male victim was able to overpower Rackley and And that's how police found them. Those two just kind of had been duking it out. They said in trial for 15, 20 minutes probably. And this male victim fortunately survived. And I should also add, in that ring video where you see Rackley chasing this male victim, you could see that there's a gun in his hand. And then that's kind of where they put both of them in handcuffs. Obviously, police, you saw that in body cam footage because they're trying to sort everything out. And from that point, the investigation started.
Yeah. And I think one of the unsettling things is that we still don't know a motive. And honestly, at this point, we may never know a motive, obviously, because he's already been convicted on all 5 counts. But yeah, it's one thing I always was wondering is what was the motive? But like you said, the party was going well. It was going fine. They seemed to all be hitting it off. So that's rough. You said that friends and family were in that courtroom and they actually ended up talking to you, which doesn't always happen because of everything that they've gone through. So nobody at all can blame them. But family did talk to you. What did they say to you when you talked to them?
And I would say the fact that I was able to talk to family, it probably helped that, they had seen me, they had seen my face throughout the whole trial. And I mean, this was a tough thing to cover. The toughest thing I've probably ever had to cover. And what kept me going was their family members that came up to me throughout the week that said, "Hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for covering this." So I was able to kind of build that rapport with family members. And so when I talked to Daniel Kemnitz's mother and father. And I mean, the first question I always ask in an interview like this is, okay, tell me about Daniel. And you could see their face light up. They called him a teddy bear. His dad said he'll always remember the hunting and fishing trips that they went on. And then I asked, does this verdict bring you any sense of closure? And they said, yeah, but the grief is still there. Their son is still gone. And it was heartbreaking. But at the same time, I think it was important to hear their voice and to make sure that we heard their emotion and what they were feeling at that point.
Yeah. Is there anything else from this trial that you want people to know or remember?
I would say I didn't mention the other 2 victims, so I'll mention them now. I've talked a lot about Daniel Kemnitz, but Michael Thompson, Kelly Reeves were the other two victims in this case. Both of their families were there, and obviously I think both of their families were satisfied with his verdict, and it's heartbreaking, but I just obviously want to make sure I mention those 2 names as well to make sure we're remembering them.
All right. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thank you.
That is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for watching Inside the Newsroom, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m.